بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أني الأستاذ المساعد الدكتور وسام وهاب صاحب الحمادي، أستاذ مادة تقويم الأسنان في كلية طب الأسنان جامعة بابل. My lectures today to my sweated students, developments of occlusion. Development of occlusion is a very important for the dentist or for all specialties. The period of occlusal development and occlusal development can be divided into the following development period. The first one, neonatal period, primary dentition period, mixed dentition period, and finally permanent dentition period. Neonatal period lasts up to 6 months after birth, while the gum pad, the alveolar processes at the time of the birth, gum pads, pink in color, firm and covered by dense layers of fibrous periodontium, as shown in this picture. The gum pad soon gets segmented by a groove called transverse groove, as shown in this picture beside this slide, and each segment is developing in two sides. The pads get divided into labiobuccal and lingual portion by dental groove. The groove between canine and the first molar region circle lateral circles, useful for judging the interarticulation at very early stage. Therefore, lateral circles very important for judging this stage. The upper gum pad is horseshoe shaped and shows gingival groove separate gum pad from the palate. Dental groove starts at the incisive papilla, extend backward to touch the gingival groove in the canine region, and then move laterally to the end of the molar region and the lateral circles also. These circles are very important and for judging this stage. The lower gum pad is U-shaped and rectangular, characterized by gingival groove, lingual extension of the gum pad, dental groove, and the lateral circles. Relationship of the gum pad. Anterior open bite is seen at the raise, contact only at the molar region, complete or virgin. Class 2 pattern being more prominent. Mandibular is distal to the maxilla, about 2.7 millimeters in the male, while 2.5 in the female. The range of variation in this distal relationship from 0 to 7, from 0 to the accord on the shell in 1938. Mandibular lateral sulci lies posterior to the maxilla. Lateral sulci mandibular functional movement are mainly vertical and too little extend anterior posterior. Lateral movement are absent in this period, and this is a very important point. In neonatal jaw relationship, precise bite or jaw relation is not yet seen. Therefore, neonatal jaw relationship cannot be used as a diagnostic for reliable prediction of subsequent occlusion in the primary dentition. Status of dentition at the birth. A precursionally erupted primary teeth, natal and neonatal teeth or natal tooth, a pre-erupted teeth or early infantive teeth, are teeth that erupted during the second or third month after that. A classification by Hebbons in 1997 classifying natal tooth into 4 clinical categories: shell-shaped crown, poorly fixed to the alveolar by gingival tissue and absence of a root. Second, solid crown, poorly fixed to the alveolus by gingival tissue and little or no root. Eruption of the incisal margin of the crown through gingival tissue. And the final type, or the edema of gingival tissue with the unerupted but palpable tooth. Complication, this complication may be occurred due to the natal or neonatal teeth interfere with the feedings. Is a very important risk of aspiration, maybe to the suffocation or death, traumatic injury to the baby's tongue and to the maternal breast. Riga-fed disease, this term is a very important to my student. Oral condition can be defined as an oral condition found rarely in the newborn, main features as an ulceration on the ventral surface of the tongue or on the inner surface of the lower lip, caused by trauma to the soft tissue from the erupted baby teeth. Riga-fed disease. Treatment. The treatment, if the erupted tooth is diagnosed as a tooth of the normal dentition, maintenance of these teeth in the mouth is the first treatment option unless this would cause injury to the baby. When well implanted, these teeth should be left in the arch and their removal should be indicated only when they are interfere with the feeding or when they highly mobile with the risk of aspiration. Reasons for removal: the risk of dislocation and consequent aspiration, traumatic injury to the baby's tongue and to the maternal breast. In 1998, authors suggested that something of incisal margin to prevent wounding of maternal breast during breastfeeding. If the treatment option is extraction, certain precautions should be taken. The first one, avoiding extraction up to 10 days of life to prevent hemorrhage. Assessing the needs to administer vitamin K before extraction, 0.5 to 1 milligram intramuscular. Considering general health condition of the baby by taking the consultation from the pediatrics. Avoiding unnecessary injury to the gingiva, being alert to the risk of aspiration during removal. Primary dentition. Really, primary dentition from around 6 months to 6 years old, and therefore the teeth can be numbering according to the universal or another types of the system of teeth numbering system. Sequence of eruption, as shown in this figure, we are start with the lower central incisor and the upper central, then the lateral incisor, upper lateral incisor, then the first molar, upper then lower, as a sequence of the number present here in this figure. Chronology of the primary dentition listed in this stable according to the evidence of calcification, weak in the uterus, and crown completed months, and eruptions months, root completed after years. For the lower, at the same calcification, features of the primary dentition. The main feature of primary dentition is spacing. Two types of dentition are seen. First one, spaced dentition, usually seen in the deciduous dentition to recommend the largest permanent teeth in the jaw. More prominent in the anterior region are called physiological spacing or developmental spacing. Absence of space in the primary dentition is an indication that the crowning of the teeth may be occur when the larger permanent teeth erupt. Here we can see the most subhuman primates have through the life and the use for interdigitations of the opposing canal. This space is used for early mesial shift, and this is a very important primate spaces. Simian spaces are called anthropoid spaces. Features of primary dentition is characterized also by non-spaced dentition. If there is non-space, the teeth are present without any space between the teeth due to the narrow dental arches, or if the teeth are wider than usual, usually indicates in the development permanent dentition, but it is not always the case. Shallow overjet and overbite. Initially, a deep bite may occur due to the fact that the deciduous incisors are more upright than their successors in future. The lower incisal edge within the singular area of the maxillary incisor, the deep bite is later reduced by the first one, eruption of deciduous molar. Second, attrition of incisor. Third, by forward movement of the mandible during growth. Features of primary dentition: almost vertical inclination of anterior, and this can be analyzed by this obtuse angle with the long axis of the teeth. Ovoid arch form. The ovoid arch form, one of the most characteristic features of the deciduous dentitions. Molar relationship. This is very important steps. Very important step, the molar relation between primary dentition can be classified into three types. Straight, flush terminal, as shown in the first picture, mesial step, and the distal step. Flush terminal plane. If the distal surface of the maxillary and the mandibular deciduous second molar are in the same vertical plane, then it's called flush terminal plane. Normal molar relationship in the primary dentition because the mesiodistal width of the mandibular molar is greater than the mesiodistal width of the maxillary molar. Mesial step, distal surface of the mandibular deciduous second molar is mesial to the distal surface of the maxillary deciduous molar. Distal step, distal surface the surface of the mandibular second deciduous molar is more distally to the distal surface of the maxillary second deciduous molar. Now, canine relationship of maxillary and mandibular deciduous canine is one of the most stable in the primary dentition, calcified as a class 1 as shown in this picture and the class 2 as shown in this picture. Now we talk about the mixed dentition. The mixed dentition occur between the primary dentition and also between the permanent dentition period. Therefore, this is a very important period to the orthodontist because there is many events which are occurred during this period. Many types of the malocclusion, many malalignments of the teeth may be occur. This is transit period. Very important to focusing in these lectures. Mixed dentition period around 6 years to up to 12 years old. The mixed dentition period can be divided into 3 phases. The first phase, first transitional period, intertransitional period, and the second transitional period. The first transitional period can we see the eruption of the first permanent molar. The first permanent molar, the location and the relationship of the first permanent molar depend much upon the distal surface of the upper and the lower second deciduous molar. A transition to class 1 molar relationship, the shift in the lower molar from the flush terminal to class 1 relation can be occur in 2 ways, early shift and late shift. Early shift is occur during the early mixed dentition period. Since this occur early in the mixed dentition, is called early shift and can be seen here very clear in this picture. Late shift is occur in the late mixed dentition period and is thus scaled less period. Here is a very clear between dotted line and continuous line. Leeway space of Nance. Dr. Nance defined the leeway space in 1947. Maxillary 0.9 millimeter per segment equal 1.8 millimeter for arch. In the mandible 1.7 millimeter to segment and equal to 3.4 to the both arch. Although the deciduous posterior segment of the teeth is a larger than permanent segment, is true of anterior segment. Dr. Nance did not consider the larger difference in the mediodistal between the deciduous incisor teeth and their permanent successor. Arch need to be looked in its totality. Maxillary incisor as a group in one quadrant equal to 3.2 to 3.5 millimeter larger. Mandibular incisor as a group in one quadrant minus 2.4 to 2.5 millimeter larger. The later figure balance out or can the 1.7 millimeter of so-called leeway space. Maurice measured the deciduous permanent teeth in the mouth obtained by longitudinal study. There is no leeway space as shown here in this picture. Total number of the permanent teeth designed to replace total number of deciduous teeth in an average girl child slightly less than 1 millimeter. More space in the mandible arch, 6 millimeter more in the maxillary arch. 1.7 millimeter leeway space taken by the larger permanent incisor required more distal eruption of the permanent canine. Allow reduction of incisor crowding in the mandibular arch. If the permanent molar well allowed or even encouraged to the depth the mesial and utilize the leeway space, no enough room in the edge for the incisor segment. Initially, permanent incisors are forced into crowded position. If the molar are held stable, incisor will utilize the leeway space. Ultimately, the average mandibular arch will have enough room to proper alignment. Secondary spacing term was coined by Pound, observed in the closed primary dentition. Secondary spacing can also occur during eruption of the permanent central incisor. Distal step when the deciduous second molar, and in the distal step the permanent first molar will erupt in class 2 relationship, and this molar configuration is not self-correcting and will cause class 2 malocclusion. Class 2 malocclusion despite the way space and differential growth. Mesial step, primary second molar in the mesial step relation lead to the class 1 molar relationship in the mixed dentition. This may be remain or progress to half or full class 3. Class 3 with a continuous mandibular growth. Influence of the terminal plane on the position of the first permanent can be seen here. How can develop to class 1, class 2 or class 3, and according to the percentage which are concluded from the literature. Exchanges of the incisor. During the first transitional period of a deciduous incisors are replaced by permanent incisor. The mandibular central incisor are usually the first to erupt. The permanent incisor are considerably larger than deciduous teeth they replace. This differences between the amount of the space needed to the accommodation of incisor and the amount of space available for this is called incisor liability. The incisor liability is roughly about 7.6 millimeter in the maxilla, while 6 millimeter in the mandibular arch, according to the line. Transitional of incisor. The incisor liability is overcome by the following factor. These factors can be completed in the second part of the lectures in the future. Now, thank you too much for your listening, my dear audience and the student, and I hope to improvement which are taken from the lecture. Bye.